Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. As a nuclear crisis is unfolding in Japan following last week's devastating earthquake and tsunami, questions are being asked about the safety of nuclear power. Engineering News Senior Deputy Editor Keith Campbell joins me to take a look at the future of atomic energy. Keith, welcome to Second Take. Would you briefly explain what went wrong at the Japanese nuclear reactors after the tsunami hit?
Well, I think it's necessary to point out first that these are quite old reactors. They can be described as quite early generation 2 reactors. The youngest of them is 30 years old. The oldest is about 40 years old. The design must be at least 45 years old. They were stressed way beyond their design limits. Apparently, they were designed to withstand an earthquake of level 7 on the Richter scale. The earthquake that hit was 9 on the Richter scale. That means that the movement of the Earth was 100 times greater than it would have been in the case of a 7 Richter earthquake. The other thing is that they're apparently designed to withstand a tsunami of 6.5 meters in height. The tsunami which hit was more than 7 meters in height. This triggered a series of crises at the plant. The reactors went into automatic shutdown, but they remain hot, very hot, and of course the fuel remains radioactive. And basically the cooling systems were knocked out and the temperature has been running almost out of control, one could say. The engineers have been frantically improvising to prevent the heat becoming so great that you have a full meltdown. It does appear that there have been partial meltdowns. It's pretty safe to assume that all 3 reactors that were in operation at the complex that is the center of this crisis, Fukushima Daiichi, that all 3 of them are write-offs and will never work again after this. Very important crisis has arisen concerning spent nuclear fuel in cooling ponds. The cooling ponds also have lost water circulation. Water's been evaporating. There have been explosions caused by hydrogen, which has been generated by reactions between steam and the zirconium cladding of the nuclear fuel in the reactor cores. The engineers had to vent that hydrogen and exploded after venting outside the reactors, but at least one of the reactors seems to have been damaged. However, at the moment, the vast bulk of radiation leakage appears to be confined to the site of the complex itself.
Keith, as a result of what is happening in Japan, many countries, including South Africa, have said they are rethinking their nuclear plans. Could this mean the end of nuclear energy as a viable option?
I don't think so. Obviously, we have to wait and see how bad this crisis turns out to be. But the fundamental fact is the world needs energy. There are not many alternatives for what's called base load energy. You have nuclear, you have coal, you have gas, you have petroleum. All of these have serious side effects or dangers associated with them. So far, the crisis at the nuclear plant in Japan has killed 5 people. None of them apparently have died from radiation. It's been the result of the non-nuclear hydrogen explosions. 11 people died when the Deepwater Horizon oil rig exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. And there have been other oil rig disasters in which scores, in excess of 100 people on 1 or 2 occasions, have died. The record of coal mining, the number of coal miners who die around the world each year, particularly in China, is quite horrific. The consequences of emissions from power stations, coal-fired power stations, oil-fired power stations, pollute the environment. People suffer health effects from the emissions of these power stations. So every form of power has serious downsides. Nuclear does not add to global warming. Now, as I say, we have to wait and see exactly how bad this crisis is. But at the moment, it's clearly worse than 3 Mile Island. where no one was hurt, but nowhere near as bad as Chernobyl. But the crisis at the time of our discussion is far from over. But at the moment, it looks as if the vast majority of the radiation that is leaked is confined to the nuclear power plant complex. It is likely that this power plant complex may never re-enter operation again. But if it remains confined to the power plant complex, it has the paradoxical effect of stressing actually how safe nuclear power is, because it's very difficult to think of any other industry which could have handled such a catastrophic event in which systems were stressed way beyond their design limits without mass effect on the surrounding territory. Don't forget, the worst industrial accident in history was not nuclear, it was chemical. It was Bhopal, which killed thousands of people in one go.
Keith, South Africa used to be one of the pioneers of the pebble bed technology. Would that be a safer nuclear option?
Well, pebble bed technology, a pebble bed modular reactor could not melt down. So the cooling crisis that the Japanese have been dealing with would not apply. The design of the pebble bed was such that it would hit a maximum temperature about 1400 degrees centigrade and then automatically start cooling itself off. Also, the nature of the fuel. In a conventional reactor, the Japanese use boiling water reactors at Fukushima Daiichi, which is the plant involved. Like pressure water reactors, these use big fuel assemblies encased in zirconium. The PBMR used tiny fuel elements and did not make use of zirconium. They made use of graphite and other materials surrounding small nuclear fuel elements. So the nuclear fuel was more distributed in a PBMR than in a conventional reactor. So it would be, yes, a lot more resistant to going wrong in the event of a major natural disaster like this. But don't forget, this is a gigantic natural disaster. The coast of Japan has been moved to the east by this earthquake, and the death toll looks to be something like 13,000. When you put it in that perspective, I would argue that the nuclear crisis is quite a minor part of the disaster that's hit Japan.
Keith, thank you very much. That is the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time for more news analysis.
Led by Martin Creamer, Mining Weekly's bureaus in Perth, Johannesburg and Toronto deliver unrivaled global coverage of the resources industry and the companies shaping it. Creamer Media's Mining Weekly, for mining news around the clock.